This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to today's episode of the Play Your Position podcast. In today's episode, I'm counting this as part one of a topic that fascinates me because I've essentially been following the unconventional path most of my life. The unconventional path isn't for everyone, and it is definitely for me. I think of myself as an artist, as someone who has not followed conventional norms the way society suggests we do. Now, I do have pockets of time in my life when I did fall into the expectations of others. You know, I did go to four-year college, got a bachelor's degree. I did go on and get a master's degree in teaching. I did live in the suburbs. You know, the proverbial white picket fence with the two kids and the dog and the SUV and all that stuff. But I'll tell you, even within the context of that life, I was pursuing unconventional paths. I suspect if you listen to this podcast, you aren't walking a conventional path either. In one way or another, you are pursuing something that doesn't fit neatly into the prescribed boundaries of what life is supposed to look like, the way culture defines life. And one of the things that I'm really enjoying as we get deeper into the 21st century is the way that more people are stepping forward and declaring for themselves the kind of life that they want that doesn't fit into what has been very conventional, very traditional for folks. And as we come to the end of this year, it's a natural time to reflect, isn't it? I bet you've been doing some reflecting this week. You know, the holidays and the craziness leading up to Christmas are behind us now. And this week between Christmas and New Year it's a really fertile time to do some self-examination, to be thinking about what kinds of things you want to be doing in the new year. And, you know, you can do self-reflection and self-examination on your own, or you can get one of the many guides available online that will walk you through specific questions and give you some structure, some activities to go through. I'm going through right now the one that Mel Robbins promotes on her podcast. And if you're not familiar with Mel Robbins, just Google her and you'll see she's everywhere. She's really risen quickly in the podcasting space in the last year, and she has one of the most popular podcasts on the planet right now. I like her content. I like the guests that she has, and I also like the deep dives that she goes into. She tackles a lot of the familiar topics like relationships and health and money and, you know, all the popular things. And she brings her own brand and flavor to it. So check her out. This guide that she created, it's a deep dive, let me tell you. It's not something that you're going to do in one sitting, unless you're either hopped up on caffeine or you have an insane ability to concentrate on 30 pages worth of material about your year. I have never done a deep dive about the last 12 months of my life in this way. So I'm excited about the challenge that this journal she's created is giving me. I'm enjoying the insights and patterns I'm noticing about 2023. By the way, I get no credit whatsoever for referring you to Mel Robbins. Like I said, she's a hot commodity right now in the podcasting industry. And she really does put out good content. A lot of thought goes into what she creates. I'm going to put a link to the episode that she introduces this guide to listeners. And then you can listen to that episode. And if you want to get the guide or the journal she promotes, you can. There's a link. She gives you a link for that. And You'll have to put your name on an email list to download it, but you can always unsubscribe if you don't want to be on another list. And as on a side note, let me tell you, I've been unsubscribing from a lot of lists lately because it just eats up too much of my inbox, and it also saps my energy. And that is one of my things I'm going to stop doing in the new year. I'm going to stop getting on lists, I should say, when I buy something and I need to put my email in, as soon as I have the item, if it's from a new company, I'm going to stop allowing that company to continue promoting their latest and greatest sale, which in some cases comes in multiple times a day. I'm sure you've had this experience, and I just, it's exhausting trying to keep up with that. So going back to this journal, I printed it out. Like I said, it's around 30 pages. It's robust. And one of the activities has you go into the photo app on your phone, and you go through your photos month by month for the past 12 months. Start in January of 2023 and then go all the way to now, December of 2023. And she has this really nicely laid out guide where you write down things that you see in each month that were highlights for you. And one of the things she said was, you're going to see photos of stuff you did and people you met that you forgot about. And I was saying to myself when she said that, I'm pretty self-aware. I remember my year I got into my photos. I'm like, nope. She was completely spot on when she said that you were going to see things in your photos that you forgot about. I certainly did. So as I reviewed each month, I'm looking at this going, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that I met up with this person. There was a trip I took in June, which I completely spaced. I mean, that was a pretty monumental trip for me. And yet with everything else that went on, it just didn't come to mind right away. So that was really cool, remembering that. And doing this exercise has helped me value a year that was definitely unconventional for me. 2023 was a different kind of year for me. It was a year full of milestones, including hitting 500 episodes here on PYP. And I'm fucking very proud of that achievement. And I use that curse word intentionally because achieving 500 episodes of a podcast, that sends a message to myself that I can stick with something that isn't easy, that requires a ton of energy and thought and persistence and grit and patience, and on it goes. And so, yeah, that milestone is huge. And, even though podcasting has become mainstream lately, and, all of you listening to this, you have your choice of a gazillion podcasts. The fact remains that putting your creative work into the world is still an unconventional act, regardless of the medium. For all the people like me and many of you listening who put ourselves out there in whatever form we choose, whether it's painting or it's podcasting or it's writing or you're building a business, or you might be a stand-up comedian or a musician you have gigs on the weekend. The list goes on and on of ways that we can put our work into the world that isn't necessarily our main source of income, right? For all of us who do that, there are far more who don't. There are far more who don't put themselves out there, and there are as many reasons that they don't as there are people. And I'm not judging anyone who chooses not to share parts of themselves online or in front of any kind of audience. It's not for everyone, and there are plenty of offline ways that people can share their best work in the privacy of their own home, just with their families. Ultimately, my message here today is as you look ahead to the new year and you're reflecting back on 2023, I encourage you not to be afraid to step outside of what you think you're supposed to be doing, whether you're doing it online or offline, because society has a lot of sway in our lives, and society will tell us, oh, you're supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z because you're this particular age or this phase of your life. And I say, fuck that. Again, there's the F-bomb. But seriously, life is too short. It is just too short. There's that saying that the days are long and the years are short. And I'll tell you, you come to the end of December every year and you look back over the year that just went by and you say, wow, that year flew. Where did 2023 go? Right? And a year from now, we'll be doing the same thing about 2024, which is why if there's a dream or a goal that you've been putting aside, maybe there's been stuff that you just don't want to keep doing. That's one of the exercises that is in this journal is you look at stuff you want to stop doing because it just isn't bringing you joy, or it's an energy leak, or it's a money leak. It doesn't matter. We ultimately get to choose what we do with every hour of every day that we're given. And then on the flip side of that, maybe you want to keep doing the stuff that is working because, this time of year can trick us into thinking that we have to change in radical ways if we want to succeed over the next 12 months. And you know what? I say a big fat no to that. Sometimes you want to keep doing things that are working now. I've looked back over my year and there are a lot of things that worked for me this past year that I plan to keep on doing. And to share a few of those right now, here's one of those things that I started doing again. I am now every morning writing by hand in a blank notebook like I used to. For years and years I was doing that. And I got away from it for a bit after my dad died. And I'll tell you, I realized once I started this practice again, I love it. I forgot how much I really, really love it. So every single morning I get out of bed, I go upstairs into my office, I write for 20 minutes by hand. I just write, I dump whatever is in my head. Sometimes I record the dreams I had the night before. Sometimes I record events from the day before. Sometimes I reflect on the project I'm working on. I also will write down affirmations, and sometimes I copy passages out of books that are particularly insightful or inspirational or just ones that I want to be able to read again. What I write doesn't matter, really. I just write. And then I do, after that, 20 minutes of yoga and stretching to get my body warm and the kinks from sleep out of my system. And then for 20 minutes, I read a few pages from a good book, something that's inspiring, something that teaches me something new or a new way of thinking. I call this my holy hour. And I have my friend Tommy Breedlove to thank for introducing the holy hour concept to me. It is just an amazing practice. That is working for me, and I'm going to keep doing that. I have noticed a huge difference in my attitude and my energy levels throughout the day since I took this practice up again. This may not work for you. It is unconventional in the sense that you have to, you're blocking an hour that's yours. And by the way, I do all this without looking at my phone. So I have not even gone on my phone. I haven't opened up my laptop or gone on my computer or my iPad. It's just pure and clean. Out of sleep, I get up, I make my bed, and I go up to my office and practice the holy hour. So there's nothing that's coming into my brain that can interfere with that sacred time. All right. So just wanted to clarify that. Some other things that I'm going to keep doing in the new year, I'm going to continue taking supplements. I recognize there are differing opinions on whether supplements work or if they're important. Well, I think in a world that's highly compromised, supplementation is a good idea, even if you do eat a whole foods diet and are very conscientious about what you're putting in your pie hole. I think it's important, for me anyway. It makes a difference. I'm also going to continue documenting my life in photographs. I absolutely love that as I went through my photo app for the year, I had so many pictures to go through month by month. It was so fun to see each month's events. My kids, I remember they used to give me so much grief when they were younger. They're like, Mom, why are you taking another picture? And I'd be like, because I'm documenting my life. And today, they are both so happy that I took so many photos because they enjoy seeing themselves when they were small. It's fun to reminisce about those times. Another thing I'm going to keep doing, I document myself in selfies. Every Every month, I make sure I do at least one photo shoot. And a lot of artists do this. You do some reading about different artists. You'll see self-portraits back in the day before cameras. There are a lot of us that are documenting ourselves. And, it's a way for me to understand different points in my life. And they anchor me in a place or a time, or I go to a specific setting that I want to capture. And my dad, one of the lessons my dad passed on to me, and he was a photographer, not professionally, but he spent a lot of time behind the camera. Let me tell you, he said, photos with people in them are much more interesting than photos without. And now I am a sucker for a great landscape. I love photos of animals, of course, but he's right. When you have photos of people, they're just more interesting. Another thing I'm going to continue doing is loving people, showing up in love, even people who are difficult. I do choose to show up in love because that's what matters to me. And it makes a difference to, again, my energy and my attitude. I'm going to continue writing and publishing books. In fact, I've got my next book coming out next spring, and I'll make sure to keep you apprised of that. I'm going to continue recording podcast episodes, of course. So that's just a handful of the things that work for me, that have worked for me this year, and I plan to continue doing. Of course, I'm also looking at the gaps in my life and asking myself what I'm going to do to fill those. So stay tuned. I've got some exciting things in the works beyond publishing my next book, and you will definitely hear about those very soon. I have to say, I am excited for 2024. I think it's going to be another interesting year. One thing that was brought to my attention not too long ago is 2024. It's an election year here in the States, and there's going to be a lot of volatility. There's going to be a lot of energy leading up to and around the election in November. And we're going to all need to be a little bit more vigilant in our boundaries, being conscientious of the kinds of conversations that we have with people. I have done a pretty good job in my life of staying away from politics as much as possible. That's been a good philosophy for me, because it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, or if you're not on the side of any aisle, nobody wins in those conversations. It's just, it's tough. So that's something that I'm conscientious of, and I pass that on to you, because sometimes we forget that even if you're not somebody who's consuming mass media, and I choose not to consume mass media, I'm talking about like nightly news and stuff like that, other people are, and they are going to be affected by the kinds of narratives that mass media is crafting to help sway all of us to do certain things, right? The mass media is it's designed to create chaos. It's designed to put us on an emotional roller coaster and make us fearful and out of control. And I just hope that you remember that despite all the negativity that the news brings, we really do live in a fairly safe world. I know there are places that aren't. For the most part, I think if you're listening to this podcast, you go to sleep at night and wake up every morning and you're safe. So just some things to be thinking about. So to close out today, I'd like to share a short passage from one of the best books I read in 2023. It's called The Creative Act, A Way of Being, and it was written by a man named Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin is one of the most unconventional people alive today. Look him up and you will see what I'm talking about. He's also incredibly intelligent, and this book is just amazing. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Rick Rubin, he's been in the music industry for pretty much his whole career. He's worked with some of the most successful and famous artists on the planet. And the passage ties into choosing the unconventional path. So here's what he writes about being an artist. And a quick side note, I believe we are all artists in one way or another. Artist doesn't mean painter or dancer or playwright or poet or musician or singer, right? I mean, those are all forms of artists. You can be an artist in your kitchen. You can be an artist as a parent. If you're a leader, you're an artist, because to be an effective leader, you need to be able to read a room, read a team, rally the troops. All of those things require art to be effective. All right. So here's what Rick Rubin says. The artist does not value safety and smallness. Reducing our palette to fit the perimeter of limited beliefs suppresses the work, new creative possibilities, and sources of inspiration are blocked from view. If an artist keeps playing the same note, eventually the audience loses interest. If an artist keeps playing the same note, eventually the audience loses interest. To break out of this mindset, our charge is to soften, to become more porous, and to let more light in. Now that comes from the chapter called Openness. And to tie us back to my theme for today, choosing the unconventional path requires openness. And the heart of open-mindedness is curiosity. Curiosity doesn't take sides or insist on a single way of doing things. It explores all perspectives. And that's also from Rick Rubin, the notion about curiosity doesn't take sides. And that would be my message here for today. Remain curious, team. Stay open-minded to what comes into your life as you're thinking about the new year. Don't be afraid to head down the unconventional path. You don't have to throw everything out in your life now. You can pick one small path that you want to explore and see where it leads. And I am excited to continue this journey here on PYP with you. It has been an amazing, amazing year. I've had so many incredible guests. I'll be putting together my end-of-year compilation with the highlights from each guest on the wisdom that they shared with us. In the meantime, enjoy this quiet week, this last week of the year, and enjoy whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, with whoever you're with. And remember, it's always a great day to get out there and play your position. This is Mary Lou Kaiser. We'll catch you next time.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.